Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Highway Commissioners, Cemetery Commissioners, and the FAA. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I have to say that this meeting is being recorded. Please rise. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up tonight is approval of minutes from 4/7/2025. Oh, wait a minute, Jan, are you there?
Hi. Yeah, Jana DeShane.
I should have said Jana DeShanes is calling in and Kerry Siganovich is excused tonight. First order of business is the approval of minutes, 4/7/2025. What is the board's pleasure?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Landry. Any questions, corrections, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Jana?
Aye.
Unanimous. We don't have to roll call.
Yeah, we do, actually.
We have to roll call that, so
Mark Landry, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jana DeShane, aye.
Unanimous. Next up is citizens' comments. Anybody wishing to ask a question or to be heard on an item that is not on the agenda does not require a vote. Sir. When you come up, just state your name and general address.
Hi there, I'm Cheryl Leto. I reside at 38 West Dudley Road. I've been here in Dudley for 8 years, and I love it. I put my name in to be considered for the Government Study Committee, so I just wanted to come up and put a face to the name. And I'm not actually sure of what the committee entails, so if you could give me a little bit of more information on that, I'd appreciate that. But I did sort of detail some of my experiences and skills that I would like to bring to the town.
So the Government Study Committee was a recommendation by the DLS, Department of Local Services audit we had last year. That was triggered by a movement or whatever by the citizens. There were some citizens that wanted us to do an audit with the state auditor's office. And the state auditor's office indicated that they don't do audits unless there's a question of criminality or misappropriation of funds. So we didn't have that. So the auditor's office sent us to DLS to have them come in and do a top-to-bottom audit of the town, the functions of the town, and they came up with a 16-point bullets of like what we should do. And one was government study. So Mr. Ruda, the town administrator, is tasked with completing most of those, so I will just hand it off to him briefly, and he can give you a little bit more insight or about the study committee.
So basically, the study committee is a non-biased, independent committee of qualified people to take a look at the way our local government is organized and make recommendations over the course of 12 months in terms of what works, what doesn't work, what the recommendation might be to change or leave it alone. Introduce best practices, and come up with a comprehensive report to report out publicly at the end of the next fiscal year.
Okay, I think that's right up my alley, actually. And so I hope, as I said, I did detail my skills in my letter to the town, so I didn't want to come up and present a resume to you. But I am very much interested in being a part of that. I really like this town, and I hope that I can be part of helping it improve. And I believe in that self-examination leads to growth. And if I can participate, I look forward to it.
So where do we stand with that, compiling that committee? I know we had a couple other people interested.
So we had, I believe, 8 or 9 applicants for the Board of Selectmen to review for appointments. And we'll make that appointment. I believe it's scheduled now for June 2nd. We'll appoint 7 of the 9.
So we haven't made the appointments yet.
All right, thank you so much.
So one thing I will say, I mean, I know there's a couple other people. If whoever the people that aren't selected, you have the absolute right to come to those meetings and participate as a resident. And who knows if somebody somehow had to bow out halfway through the term. Like, it's not going to be like an elected term. You know, the general guideline is about a year to go through this. So somebody may step up and fill in. So again, if you're one of the 7, welcome. If you're not, you can still come. And if there's an opening, you can be appointed over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for coming in.
Mr. Chairman, in terms of the rest of the recommendations, we came up with that action plan that the board voted about a month ago, with timelines assigned to that action plan.
Yeah, that was a general
So
guideline.
we'll work, we assigned different people who would be responsible to take a look at those recommendations, whether it be the finance team, the internal finance team, or a combination of the FAA, the finance team, the Board of Selectmen, to act on those, things like bylaws and policies and that sort of thing that I know at some point Sarah will speak to, maybe later tonight, in terms of some policy development. I know she's attending some classes, and we'll introduce that. So, an initiative like that would be introduced internally to the finance team. We take a look at it and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to adopt or edit or amend as they saw fit, and we just move forward very systematically to meet those timelines.
Excellent. Mr. Durgan.
This question is for the selectmen. Do you guys know the difference between the capped landfill compliance and the Eagle Drive mitigation?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Ruda because I don't deal with that on a day-to-day basis.
Any other selectmen know the answer to that?
I'll defer to town administrator.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay, can you explain it to me so I can understand it?
You don't know the difference between it? You've been
I know the
asking
difference,
me
but I
email
it seems
on a
like-
weekly basis about the difference.
Yep.
If you want, I can resend those emails to you.
All right.
If you'd like me to say what the difference is, there's a certain compliance issue for a capped landfill where testing has to continue on, whether it's vapor recovery or it's groundwater monitoring, to determine how much of a contaminant is coming out of that capped landfill.
So that's the capped landfill compliance, the
Correct.
monitoring around the landfill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what happens if we don't pay for that, if we don't, do that? If we
Then
don't,
we'll be out of compliance.
yeah, right, what happens if you're out of compliance?
We'll have to see how DEP responds.
Will the
to that.
landfill still be able to use the solar farm, and will they be able to still get solar credits?
That remains to be seen.
How about the mitigation on Eagle Drive? What happens if you're out of compliance on that?
Right now, they're in compliance because Gentex is paying the entire,
All the lane hasn't been tested in over a year, so technically you're out of
well, we
compliance.
follow a schedule that's assigned by DEP.
Right. And the DEP says that you have to test quarterly, and you haven't been tested for over a year.
We follow a schedule that's assigned to us by DEP.
Okay. So what happens if you're out of compliance with that? Say you just decide not to pay that.
Well, we don't make the decision up here, it's whether or not it's funded at town meeting.
Well, you do make the decision. You guys are the budget builders. Should have been in the budget. It's a 4-year project now. Going on 4 years.
Okay. What would you propose we cut in order to fund that?
Well, my first question is going to be, what is your tax levy for 2025?
Well, I think we're gonna get to that.
All right. Got a preview? 17,850, 14?
I think we're gonna get to that tonight.
All right. So I have to wait around for it?
Well, it's a process.
Okay. That's all I got then.
We also had town council here more than once, and he laid out a general scenario that could happen, including fines, but he's also said it every time, nobody knows what DEP will exactly do, so
That's right.
we're at their mercy. Anybody else that wishes to speak? Hearing none, thank everyone for participating. Next up, appointment. Doug Macedo, Finance Appropriation Advisory Committee, term to expire 6/30/2028. Is Doug here? Mr. Chairman,
No, he's not here. I don't see him here tonight.
have you had a chance to talk to him at all?
He was on capital improvement committee, and resigned from there to come on finance. I think that was a few months ago. A few months ago. Talked to him briefly, a couple times about coming on finance, but I haven't seen him. A couple months.
We still have appointments as selectmen? Does the board, what's the board want to do? You would take that, I know he came in for capital improvement. Comfortable just making a motion to appoint? Chair will entertain a motion to appoint.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Doug Macedo to the Finance Appropriation Advisory Committee, term to expire
6/30/28.
6/30/28. That's the laptop.
Second.
Jan, are any questions?
No, I think I'm good.
A motion and a second to appoint Doug Macedo, FAA, term to expire 6/30/2028. All in favor, state aye.
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 Aye, a roll call, sorry.
Mark Landry, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jana DeShane, aye.
Mr. Chairman, we'll notify him tomorrow of a successful appointment. He'll get sworn in, and then he'll be able to join the FAA at our next meeting.
Any abstention or any change of vote? Hearing none, the vote is unanimous. Next up, reappointment. Steve Rogerson, Veteran Service Officer, term to expire April 30th, 2026.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reappoint Stephen Rogerson, Veteran Service Officer, term to expire April 30th, 2026.
Second.
Jan, any questions?
Nope.
Steve, you got a brief statement you want to make, or you want to say anything? It's going to take the, sure to be unanimous vote and run.
No, I think I'm okay.
All right, hang on, Steve's coming up.
Thank you, Chairman. I have really no comments. You know, I was here last Monday and spoke about the budget and everything we're trying to accomplish. So, thank you very much for supporting the Veterans Office, and actually for both towns, because I have Webster and Dudley, which has been a challenge the last year and a half or so, but we're getting it done.
Good, excellent.
A lot of good words, keep it up.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Mark Landry, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jana DeShane, aye.
Any change of vote? Hearing none, unanimous. Thanks, Steve. License and permits, we have none. 7A, public business, capital improvement plan. Board of Selectmen vote to accept the capital improvement plan additions via memo from the CIPC. Mr. Ruda.
Mr. Chairman, we had the capital improvement plan meeting last week. We held on a vote at that time in order for us to prepare a document for the Board of Selectmen to vote to approve the recommendations of capital, to update our capital improvement plan. So that's where we left off.
I'm just going to do the quick, there's three bullet points. Police cruiser replacement, fire cruiser replacement, water line for Eagle Drive neighborhood. What's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the capital improvement plan additions via the memo from the CIPC.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Landry, second Mr. Johnson. Jan, any questions?
No, I read through the memo and I don't have any questions.
Call the matter to a vote. Roll call.
Mark Landry, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jana DeShane, aye.
Any change of votes? Hearing none. Let the record reflect unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, we'll get you a memo to sign on behalf of the board for borrowing purposes.
7B, Board of Selectmen, vote to approve the overlay release letter for the Board of, for the Board of Assessors or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Ruda.
This is a request to the Board of Assessors to release the surplus overlay amount of $125,000 to be applied to the FY26 budget.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
Anyone from the Board of Assessors here that could talk?
I believe. Bird was excused tonight, right?
Yes.
On board.
Do we want to list the amount, or are we all set?
The overlay will be covered in the FY '26 budget, set and covered in the FY '26 budget. This is the surplus amount that we're asking to be released. The assessors will take a vote to release it at our request, and we'll include it in the FY '26 budget.
Further questions of the town administrator? Hearing none, call to a vote, roll call.
Do we need a motion?
Oh, motion, sorry, I thought,
So moved.
I lost second. Motion by Mr. Landry, second by Mr. Johnson, sorry about that, I lost my agenda.
Mark Landry, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jana DeShane, aye.
Any change of vote? Let the record reflect unanimous. 7C, FY '26 budget. Board of Selectmen FAA review the updated revenue expense number and take any action relative thereto. Mr. Ruda.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor should probably open his meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, excuse me, it's April 14th, approximate 2025. It's approximately 6:51. I'm going to open the FAA meeting.
Where would you like to start with the budget?
Well, we've done a lot of work on the revenue sheet and the finance team level, so we should probably start with that.
So Mike, I just have one quick question before we get going. Is the finance team in agreement, comfortable with the revenue projection figures we're using?
Yeah, we've been working together to, looking at the bottom line. We really need to find some revenues and make some cuts. And if you look at this revenue sheet, you were presented revenues back on March 10th. There's some subtle changes here. One thing you'll note, a few line items have increased about, $1,000 to $10,000. Is it off?
It's just one.
Oh. Can I sing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna play karaoke. All right. So I don't exactly remember what the bottom line revenue number was when we last did this exercise, but I can tell you that the excise motor vehicles, we had put back to the 24 actual number, and then we added $10,000 more to that. So that's the 1681. And the other number that changed pretty significantly is tax title sales. They're currently sitting at 80. We had 190 in there originally, and then we dropped it down to 0, and then Rich went back and got a more accurate number. The number changed actually later on today, and it's about $99,000. So we have a little bit of wiggle room there if we bump that number up. We were really tight working with the budget. I think we started with a shortfall over $500,000 and went through and curbed things up. But that's local receipts. Did you want to go into everything on here?
We should.
Okay, because we do talk about the indirects. The projection that Matt Abrahams used had a slight error in it. It had some incorrect salary numbers, and that resulted in a slight increase in the indirects, not material, but a few $1,000s. So that went up a little bit there. Other numbers that we take right off the cherry sheet. Are you familiar with the cherry sheet? It's a statement from the Massachusetts Commonwealth. Those numbers are all pulled in here also. So that's where we stand with the revenues. I don't know, does anyone have questions as you look through? I know you just got the information.
Mr. Chairman.
Anybody have any questions on the revenue side of it?
No.
So you're comfortable with the cannabis going up to 160?
Yeah, actually, it might be higher than that. What we're looking for, the actual cannabis year-to-date, it's running about $45,000 a quarter. But the 160 is a pretty conservative, good estimate, so.
And Mr. Chairman, the reason we're more comfortable with it is because they are in receivership, so now the bills are getting paid again, including the money owed to the Commonwealth.
I get a question on the excise tax. So it's up quite a large amount, 231, 120 over previous.
Yeah, we had dropped the estimated receipts when we did the recap.
Okay.
All right, so we dropped it substantially so that we would not leave any excess levy capacity on the table, and that was the area. So we put it back to 2024 actual,
Okay.
a little bit more.
And so actuals up through the end of January, 226, 644, those are our actuals?
Well, we bill excise tax in February, so I actually just posted the revenues for February later on today. So I didn't have an opportunity to update this, but they are coming in. I would say, Rich, well, Lisa's not here, but I'd say probably half have come in, and then there's a second billing that went out. So,
Okay.
yeah. And then we also collect prior years. So there's always like a full year's in there. We have some stragglers from prior years.
So we're budgeting 1,681,000, but our actuals up through a couple months ago were 226.
It's because nothing had been billed. That 226 represents 100% prior years.
Okay.
Collections.
All right, I see, okay. So 1,681,000 you're,
Yeah, and we're still trying to catch up with the revenue posting.
there was also an increase in the police detail, admin detail?
It's probably one of the numbers. It's ambulance, hold on, what line or how far down?
Well,
Police administrative detail,
Detail, yeah, that went up
yeah.
from the,
Well, that's looking very strong. So that's an area where we felt. And how do you feel, Chief?
That number is really hard to determine every year because we're not sure what projects coming up. National Grid did a large job last year, so there was a lot of details. And what happens is for private details, we charge them 10%. So 1 year, it could be up high, and another year it could be no construction going on, so it could be low. So it all depends on the private details.
Chief, how's that account running? I know we always talk about it with the smaller companies.
The hardest company to get money from is Mass DOT. They're always behind in months because what happens is we bill them and then it takes months for them to get money and then they pass that money on to us. But for the most part, it's always 2 or 3 months turnaround on the billing, with the exception of Mass DOT, but we're chasing them around all the time.
So the smaller companies, I remember in the past, that was always an issue. Like we always had not a negative, but we were behind. Companies wouldn't
Yeah,
pay.
we're always behind because obviously we're always, you're paying the officers and then you're waiting for the check to come in about 4 or 5 weeks after the fact. But Mass DOT is the only one that's behind probably more than 6 months on some of the bills. But other than that, we've been on top of everybody.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
the other one too, and I think the chief had talked about this a few meetings ago, is the ambulance receipts being up. Was that, chief, was that any grant money, that one-time grant money that was involved in that, or was that just?
No, through the chair, ambulance receipts are just we go through our third-party billing company. It's whatever ambulance runs, we run. And then it gets billed out, and then we get back what we get back. Obviously, if it's Mass Health or Medicare, they only bill, they cap out. So if we bill $2,000 for an ALS2 call, we only get $300, but the privates pay full boat. And as of March, which I sent the numbers to Rich, and you get the numbers, and I get the numbers, we're almost $100,000 over last year, and we still got 3 months to go. So I'm feeling pretty confident that we're going to be up quite a bit. I mean, now, could the last 3 months, could we lay an egg the last 3 months? Yeah, but do I think it's going to happen? No. So I think we're going to be up considerably over last year.
All right, the only reason why I was asking on it is because you mentioned something about a Medicaid grant, and I didn't know if...
No, every year I go through this thing that the state brought forward, where you have to show all your expenses and everything, and I submit it to a company called PCG that works for the state, and they do an additional Medicaid reimbursement because they know they don't pay full boat, but they're trying to get all the cities and towns a little bit of money back, and usually that gets us anywhere between 35 and 45,000 additional. I think this year was, because we do it in the fall, and then it gets awarded in like June, so I think comes out to like, it was like 42 or 44,000 additional on top of all our receipts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good? Anybody else?
Questions? I just have one more on the revenue side. So can you explain the tax title, why there was nothing in there budgeted?
Have Rich come up and...
Just stepped out.
There was,
There he comes.
It's a labeling issue, isn't it? Can we determine today that it was the
yeah,
way it was
yeah, and
labeled?
I'm trying to reach out to the state to see where the money belongs on, but we put it here because it's definitely revenue that will come in.
Those are tax lien, those are the tax lien sales? Is that what that is?
Yeah, well, Rich can explain.
Rich, Mike had a question while you stepped out. He'll just repeat it.
Yeah, he was asking about the lien, the tax title sales, so I don't think that's exactly what they are.
Tax liens redeemed. So it's an irregular source of revenue. You don't pay your house taxes, the municipal collector puts a lien on it. We will go through and collect the money when it is paid. If you're on tough times and you get a refinance inside of 6 months, the town is paid in 6 months. If it's 3 years and we go to land court, then at one point that forces the movement. So it's a secured revenue, but when it gets paid is when it gets paid.
What was that categorized last year? 'Cause I was looking at our previous revenue sheets and I could not find that mixed in. What was that?
I think a few things had been categorized a bit better this year than previous years, just so they can be identified for year 2, year 3, year 4.
Thank you.
But if Mr. Chairman, if I could, so the question was motor vehicle excise. Sarah went through and said we had 226, which was all the previous years. So the commitment for number 1 is $1,584,000. So there's good confidence that the first one coming in was very high. The second one is due at the end of the month, but we already have $1,117,000 already sitting in the bank. So if you want to do some quick math, we are well positioned to be that. And the pink bills are due today. So you would figure over the next two weeks, we'd be getting that. And again, this is just 3/31.
Did I answer your question, Mike?
Yes, yeah.
Thanks, Rich.
Oh, good with reps?
Yeah, everybody good on the FAA?
Any questions? We're looking at over $400,000 more than we thought
Before,
a month ago.
yeah, yeah. Well, we needed to get very strategic.
Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited.
Well, no, we
Yeah,
go a
no,
couple
it's
more
a-
months, maybe we'll find another $500,000.
Yeah.
Jana, any questions?
I do have one question. The meal tax increase, do we know what that's from?
We had dropped the meals tax down in the recap, and then we brought it back up. So I think originally last year we had it at 100, and we dropped it down so that we wouldn't have any excess levy capacity, and we restated it. So that's what's going on there. And that's a pretty accurate number, looking at the trending. It brings in about $24,000, $25,000 a month. I mean, a quarter, I'm sorry. It's,
Okay, great, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else? Anything else on the board?
No, sir.
Mike?
Indirects. So we're budgeting for 210 now,
Sarah?
Yes,
so that went down.
yeah, we had the study. I don't know if you want to,
So Matt Abraham's conducted the study that we've been talking about for the last almost 2 years now. He came in with a lesser number split between water and sewer. Presented that to the commissioners. My understanding is they voted that lower number. That was before it was presented to the finance team. And one of the things that, Sarah picked up on was that there was some salaries that were inverted. So a $71,000 salary was coming across as $17,000, and the indirect was calculated on $17,000 incorrectly, as opposed to $71,000. And they were also being figured on FY25 numbers as opposed to FY26, which is what this is predicated on. So we brought it up to 210, based on what Matt Abrahams came up with for a calculation. So we were off by a few $1,000s.
Okay. Do you agree with that?
That's what we have for a number right now, Mr. Chairman. It's hard to grasp that things would come in less expensive, but on the other side of the equation, the commissioners believe there were some things that they were undercharging for. So, in the interest of not having a debate for tonight, we plugged in a number that was within a few $1,000s, 210, as to what we had last year. And I think it's something we can work with right now.
well, that ties
It's
to
not
the
gonna, it's not,
corrected.
I don't think either way, if we had a big debate over it, we come out, we're leaving $100,000 behind, based on the way Abrahams is gonna recommend the calculation be done. But I don't think we at this point in time, I don't think we can go there. I mean, it's, it was just literally presented to us last week. So we'll have an opportunity to catch up with it.
Good, Mike?
Yeah, thank you.
FAA good with that explanation?
All right.
Jana, you good?
Yep.
And Sarah?
Okay, so if you turn the page, there's a 5-page document, okay? And that's the detailed line items that were presented to you and to us from the departments. That would be in the proposed column, the first blue column. And then looking at the revenues and trying to balance out the budget, we as a team worked to make changes and or propose changes to get us to align an amount that is balanced. Some of the items we are considering postponing until the October meeting. So we'll drop them down in May and then revisit them once the free cash comes in October. If you look at the top right-hand corner, you'll see a color code. The yellow are for, as it states, are the items that we as a team, with John, have made changes to. The green items are where we have deducted from our capital stabilization fund. The blue items we have deducted from the stabilization fund. And it's not the full, if you look, they pop up on page 2 in the middle. So 100% of the increase in the health care. You guys are aware that there's a significant increase for health care everywhere right now. So we justified funding that increase with stabilization funds. And then 50,000 of the increase for the retirement fund we chose to include as funded from the stabilization account also. And then the pink items are items, we had $121,000 of free cash remaining from last year. And so the pink items are what we're covering with that. So, I don't know. It takes a while to digest the items. I don't know if you've had a chance to...
So while we're looking through that, Mr. Chairman, we're looking at roughly $880,000 increase over the last year, give or take what we adjusted here, within the last few hours. But we're roughly $880,000 over last year. When you take a look at mandatory increases, those are increases that are required and not subject to being cut, such as health insurance. Health insurance went up from last year, $260,000. Public safety, we had to add the fiber lines. We had talked about that over the course of the last few months. The fiber lines provide repeater coverage in West Dudley and around town, so that when we have a public safety incident in the western part of town, where regular radios can't reach back to dispatch, back to the police department, back to the fire department. We used to have those repeaters hooked up to copper lines, which is what we used to have for just normal telephones. Verizon no longer services copper lines. So we had to phase that out and add public safety fiber lines. We tried different methods. This was the most effective, both from a cost standpoint and from a public safety standpoint. So that annual cost went up $25,000. So just the first two items between health insurance and the public safety fiber, we're already approaching $300,000. Capped landfill compliance. We had a discussion at the last meeting. I was directed to add that amount into the operating budget. That cost is $98,000. That's just for the capped landfill. That's not Eagle Drive. So I've added that in as a line item.
And just for an aside too, that was, excuse me, that was the purpose of the two special town meetings that we had, where it failed at both of them. We're working under the vice.
So we didn't want to have to pull out of operational costs, and we tried to borrow that money twice. It didn't achieve the necessary majority to pass both times, so it's a requirement. As you can see, I was called to task at the top of the meeting tonight over it, and as to what's going to happen next and how we're going to handle it. Well, we're budgeting it. We had an initial proposal from Weston and Sampson 3 or 4 months ago of 140. It's now down to 98 because we skipped those testing periods. We're not yet out of compliance, but that's going to come. I mean, that's just a matter of time before we're out of compliance. So that's coming out of our operational fund. And we also had We had an internal discussion at the finance team level meeting this morning, as a matter of fact. We had borrowed in the past successfully at town meetings, $297, I think was the number that Rich borrowed to remain compliant with both Eagle Drive and Cap landfill. And the first payment is due now, FY '26, and it's $65,000. So instead of pulling $300,000 out of our operating funds a year or two ago, we're managing the money, we're financing it, and we're able to better, keep ourselves more solvent. That was the whole point behind borrowing. And if we got to a point and Rich borrowed the money and we had the sufficient amount of free cash, we would just pay the note off all the sooner, but that didn't pan out. So we're in health insurance up $260, public safety fiber, $25,000. Cap landfill, we're now pulling out of our operational funds, that's $98,000. Now we take a look at our contractual obligations, and again, we had...
Can I stop you just for
Sure.
a sec? I just want to say, if you're following along, we have the last page is the fixed costs that
Yeah,
I've already
that's right.
done. So it kind of, all right, I'm sorry.
I just want to kind of frame it for everyone that things that we can't, we had an increase over last year, and you look at it and say,
So
wow,
that's
we're up
fixed
$800,000, but we're already taking big bites out of it from things that we can't cut. Contractual obligations, those are the collective bargaining agreements for police, fire, water, and sewer, and our contracted employees. And as a reminder, we now have the town hall unionized in seeking a contract, which will be negotiated for, within the FY '26 budget year. So our increased cost for contractual obligations is $250,000. The assessors need to continue to fund cyclical inspections. That's the ongoing cost of reassessing properties. I'm going to recommend that we defer that until October, which will be fine as long as we put an article up and it passes. We took that out of her line item budget, and we're going to put it on as an article in October. We generally pass that over anyways until October.
I was gonna say, that's what we've done historically, to move money around.
That's right. Our retirement liabilities, we had some key staff retire. That increased our retirement cost by $222,000.
Again, that's not just one person, we had 3 or 4.
Right. Cost of healthcare goes up, it affects retirement. The out-of-district costs, those are the vocational students that are pursuing another course of learning outside of our district in a course that's not covered by Bay Path. That's about a $50,000 annual cost.
Right,
That comes
and
out of the operating fund.
And that number's not quite 50/50, but it's close to 50% tuition and 50%. We have to pay for transportation also.
That's correct.
So like 22 and 28 or something like that, or 24 and 23.
29 and 28.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then we have the costs of IT and cybersecurity, which don't go down every year, they certainly go up. But we've taken another look at what we were paying over the past few years, and we've gotten a better contract, I think, on that. We have a more proactive monitoring setup where it's not piecemeal and we're not necessarily being nickel and dime over the course of the year. It's all pretty much rolled into this $42,601 cost. So our bottom line fixed costs, those are the costs that we can't touch, we can't cut, they're actual bills. $787,000, $787,886 roughly.
And again, to go back to that cyber, we definitely need it because we actually had to use it more than once last year.
Right, well, we can't be without it because there's too much important data that has to be protected, and every year it gets
More expensive.
more expensive. So if you look at the overview sheet, I think that was provided, our revenue through taxation went up 580. Our revenue from non-taxation, 303. And I believe, like I said, between the time I wrote up some notes for myself, we've probably made some adjustments here within the last few hours, but we're roughly in the 884 range. for our increases, with our fixed cost starting right out of the chute at 787. So the difference of about $96,000 is what we have to work with for this year going forward for FY '26.
Now we go to the costs that we have no control over.
Our Bay Path assessment actually went down by $46,000. That's based on actual student enrollment, so that's a pretty straightforward cost. Our Dudley Charlton Regional Assessment, the operating cost, I believe, was $394. And we debt excluded the capital portion of it.
And that's mainly because the number of students increased, right?
For overall. And we debt excluded the capital portion, which was the roofs, which is, again, another example of managing the debt, managing the costs, not taking out of the operating funds.
Right, just
So that,
for a comparison, we had the meeting in February where they first gave out their numbers, Dudley Charlton, and we debt excluded the roof through the generosity of the voters. We all vote that live in town. Charlton used a one-time payment, right? So that became their assessment.
they stroked the check as opposed to us borrowing for it.
Right, so if we didn't borrow, we would have done the check ourselves, and that big number would have became part of their bottom line assessment also on top of the regular assessment. So Charlton's was 1 million, something like that, was it like over $1 million?
For the
Their
But
number
their
for this year.
assessment increase, yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty substantial.
Yeah, because they had the cash and they decided to pay up front, but that number became part of their assessment. So again, as Mr. Ruda said, managing the money was a smart move. Sorry if I'm interrupting you. Must be used to it by now.
No, so if we apply so with the school assessments, those increases, and the stuff that we talked about already, the mandatory spending, if we apply the $96,000 that we had to work with, we're a negative 220, already out of balance, before we even taken a look at anything else. So the last meeting we had, I was directed not to cut any public safety in preparation of the FY '26 budget. So from there, we moved on. And for example, one of the chiefs, if you want to, step in, I'm going to summarize what's being asked from each public safety department. The police department funded contractual obligations in their FY '26 budget, and we talked about that earlier. So that's all set in their budget. They asked for an additional officer. But they also lost some positions through attrition. So what we've spent last year through attrition, we had some officers leave that were more expensive than some of the newer officers. So there was some amount of savings within the budget there. But don't forget, when we fund another position, you're also talking about a health insurance hit of roughly $20,000 to $22,000 that Rich has to budget on his end. So between the amount of attrition that was gained in the police department and the request, it's a much smaller number. The adjusted cost for the patrolman is roughly $11,453. I left it alone. I left it in the police budget. The fire department level funded everything except contractual obligations. And of course, with contractual obligations, with hourly rates going up, that increased his overtime a little bit. But he's basically level funded all of his other line items.
One of the positions went back a little bit, John, through the chair.
The good or the bad, let me guess. Good?
No, when we lost that person in October, they had rank. That went back to a private. I think it should show up there.
Which one are we looking at?
Is that under your, the line item budget, chief?
Yeah. I can't see that from here.
Yeah, I think it's 5118. Is that the one? It's from 95 to 67?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, okay.
that was a significant cut, but that was because we're going from a top step captain to a private, so that shows a significant savings there. I mean, it went back into overtime, but like I said during my budget presentation, and I had the conversation with Mr. Mayotte, I never have enough overtime. I'm not gonna have enough this year, so I put money into it like I was advised by 2 different boards to do, so that was the only increase. Like the TA said, everything was level funded.
And then we consider highway part of public safety as well. Highway is substantially understaffed at 5 people. The highway had 13 positions in 2019. The request for highway was to add 2 positions. We were granted the ability to overspend snow and ice. The Board of Selectmen voted on that this year, and we're probably $45,000, $50,000 negative in that account right now.
Again, just to reiterate, again, through the generosity of the voters, 3 of the 5 overrides passed, and highway was one that didn't pass. And just
Highway did not pass, right.
Just for example, one time we had 2.5 people in building and grounds. Now we're down to 1. And MJ Gatsky moves the guys around, but now he's down to 5 total. So I'll let him speak on it, but the numbers and the flexibility isn't quite what it used to be.
MJ Gatsky was out spreading fertilizer on the front lawn on Friday. That's how understaffed we are.
Last year, we had an extra 2 guys. I lost those 2 guys. I hired 1 guy to replace those 2 guys in June. That guy left and went to the sewer department. So I'm actually short 2 guys that aren't funded right now.
That's just from last year, below the cap that you had before.
Yes. So technically, right now, counting my mechanic, counting me with my mechanic, we have 5 guys altogether. It's very hard to get anything done. So, and then we did spend a lot of, on snow and ice. Salt's $73 a ton right now. I spend, I think, $87,000 just on salt this year alone. $87,600 just on salt alone. And then, so that doesn't leave anything for like my part-time, all our drivers for anything for, snow removal or anything like that. So we are over on snow and ice by quite a bit, but it was a rough winter compared to what we've been having. But salt just keeps going up and up and up. Gas prices, so do what we can do.
Yeah. Any questions for the superintendent? FAA? Anna?
I think I'm good, except I have kind of a general question. So when it comes to, our overtime allocations and things like that, like, has highway overspent overtime for this fiscal year for like FY25? Because I'm just looking at like last year's budget.
3,000.
And I'm just wondering, like, were we able to stay within it? I mean, being understaffed, I can't imagine that we were.
So it's, what we overspent was snow and ice, right? I mean,
Yeah, a lot of
that's where we're really,
A lot of our overtime for the storms and stuff go on the snow and ice account.
right.
So that's where a lot of our, like the regular overtime is just like trees fall down, signs, accidents, storms. That's where we get all the, that's the other overtime.
So really, we kind of isolate, through the chair, we isolate the snow and ice overtime within the snow and ice line item, and we save the other overtime for other
For the rest of
emergencies.
the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cost of two new positions, Mr. Chairman,
We did fill one of them with a part-time seasonal position that we were filling in. He was just seasonal from October till April. He was helping out. And he was a full-time, part-time. So we did take one of those positions and fill it with that.
If it was non-benefited and he's gone,
But no benefits, no insurance, no anything.
and he's gone.
Yeah, he just works the winters for us to give us a hand, and he's a 40-hour a week. Plus, he's there for our storms whenever we need him. He's on a call basis. So if we need him during the storms or at night or anything like that in the winter, because we don't want to burn out the 4 guys that we have.
Thank you.
so 2 new positions, Mr. Chairman, at $57,190, and 2 health insurance costs are roughly $158,380 to fund those 2 positions. So the highway budget, the contractual obligations, of course, remain within that FY '26 budget. We can't cut back on that, obviously. So I don't know, those are the highlights. How would you like me to, well, you want me to tell you what we did? Would that be the next thing, or do you want to?
You would like to, yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Keep going.
All right, so now I guess the color codes will make sense.
So we're going,
Do you want to refresh on the color codes?
Yellow's TA, green is capital
So
stabilization.
you see a yellow adjustment, that's what we discussed and what I've adjusted for my recommendation of FY '26 versus what the department had requested. The green, we funded through capitalization, capital stabilization. The light blue is the regular stabilization, and then the purple is free cash. So I guess we'll just go through the public safety budgets, maybe in IT. Those are the ones that took the biggest hits, I think. When I say hits, don't get nervous. We funded them, but we funded them through other means.
I think the school calls them a cost center.
Cost
Biggest
center,
cost
biggest
centers.
cost center, it's much better. The only cut I made to police is the reserve officer salary. The expenses was a $5,000 cut. My suggestion is that we revisit that in October. That's not a heavy lift at $5,000. The chief requested 70. I don't think we will overspend that between now and October. We left a new position in, and we're funding expenses through capital stabilization, photo prints, computer and supplies. And like I said, we left a new position in, so really the only substantial cut to the police department, I'm gonna recommend we put we'll see how we're doing in October, put the 5,000 back in expenses, and the reserve officer salary was the only thing that really made sense to cut. Most of the cost center for police is salaries, and those are all contractual obligations. So if we see how that bottoms out, chief requested $1,999,000. My recommendation is $1,992,000, and his increase with the new position was $113,000, 6.4%. So following directions, I left the new position in there for public safety with minor tweaks here and there, just to balance. Okay?
Chief, anything you want to add?
Just like I mentioned before, the new position will hopefully cut back on potential overtime. And with the way things are going right now, we might have to send somebody to the academy. The problem is, if you hire somebody, the turnaround is about a year to get somebody trained. So if you hire somebody right now, by the time they go to the academy, have field training, they're not gonna hit the road until probably, you're lucky to get 11, 12 months and then get them on the road. So we're trying to get ahead of it. So right now, we're 2 people short. One's on injury, the other one, I haven't had too many applicants for the position. So with this position, it's probably gonna be an academy-trained officer that you probably won't see on the road for at least a couple months. But we're trying to get ahead for the next year to try to cut back on some of the costs.
Chief, you think you're gonna have to run a test center to try to get candidates in the queue at least?
So right now, we're trying to get certified officers, but I think, like I said, we're having a hard time, so I think we're gonna be reaching out to a firm and start looking at entry level and try to get somebody in the academy, hopefully in the next academy.
Thank you. Any other questions? He stepped away for the chief. Jan, you good?
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Okay.
FAA with questions for the chief? I know he stepped away, but.
No.
You good?
So I funded 20,000, my recommendation is to fund 20,000 from the fire department budget through capital improvement stabilization. And no other cuts. And that's not a cut, it's just a different source of funding.
That's down on preventive maintenance.
Yeah.
Chief, anything you want to add?
Just that, I don't know, I had brought this up the night I presented my budget. My total increase was 46,000, and I think the revenue the fire department's bringing in is gonna come out to more than that, so. Just that my increase is minimal.
Any questions for the chief? FAA? Jan, are you good?
Yeah, no question.
Thanks, chief.
Okay.
Keep going.
Go back to the. Not sure why that's highlighted. Do you remember, Sarah?
Which one?
Board of Health?
No, I don't remember. There's no change, so.
There's no change, so that's just,
Yeah.
we did add in the $2,000 requested for water testing at the beach. All right, so for highway, this was an interesting one. We have to remember that, again, the override didn't pass for the highway. I talked to MJ about this. Obviously, we've got to staff up the highway. My recommendation is that we hire one July 1st, and we hold on the other one until October, because it doesn't make any sense to carry the extra person between July 1st and October town meeting. It just doesn't, the investment doesn't, with health insurance and so forth, and we reevaluate this in October to see if it can be actually funded. But we should definitely at least go forward with one July 1st and then reconsider in October.
Yeah, people have to, we spoke about it earlier, people got to understand. Even if he gets the guy, it's going to take you a while to get him up and trained, and then we'll have 6. Response time be a little slow on some things. I know you get there as fast as you can, but.
And then in terms of, and then in terms of the highway, there's gonna be a lot of influx of money from capital improvement, highway machinery maintenance. My recommendation is fund it, but through capital improvement stable. Same with equipment, same with highway general. I think there's a note next to that $40,000 for the gas. I think we need to table, in all departments, we're gonna have to see where our gas prices stand in October. So I don't think we're gonna run out of, we're gonna overspend $40,000 between July and October, but in order to balance, that's another thing we're gonna have to take a look at. One thing that I hated to do was take the money that was originally requested of 115 out of snow removal and level it at 95. We're gonna have to really take another hard look at that too in October as well with free cash. Because, like I said, we're 50 grand deep in overspending that account. So somewhere between 115, and if you go up to highway overtime, I bumped that up from the department head request from 8,670, I bumped that up to 10,000. Just to give us a little bit of flexibility, so that if we're 115, we've got a few $1,000s more in overtime for fiscal year 26. It gives us a little bit more breathing room, but year after year, I don't think 95 grand is gonna continue to be realistic, based on salt prices that MJ was talking about earlier and the way the costs are increasing. We definitely have to take another look at that in October and put more money into it. It's gotta be on the top priority list.
Do we fund wages out of that too?
Out of snow and ice,
Was it just materials?
we've been, when they plow or do snow removal, he bills, he sends that to the line item for snow and ice.
Right, and my point being, same as the police and fire, with contractual increases.
Which we fully funded those in the highway, so there are, the salaries haven't,
Right, but on the removal side, that line item.
correct, that increases that line item.
Right.
Right.
That's part of the reason it's not just salt prices, it's also labor and
Yeah.
manpower.
Part-timers,
Yeah, everybody. Just wanna put that out
Same
there.
with road maintenance. So we started last year, we were at 787. The request was 972. My recommendation, with the strong proviso that we go back in October and take a look at this, because it's going to be tight if we don't, 854, 657. And that tree removal section, I believe that was that was free cash that was left. Is that what the color code is, the purple color code?
Yeah.
And that's for tree removal.
Again, MJ, how much is 18,000? 3 trees?
yeah, we have a good tree guy, so he's good at it, but it's 5 days work,
Yeah,
roughly. So,
5 out of 365. Can't leave it till Monday for if it goes down Saturday night, you can't leave it till regular business hours.
So again, public safety override passed a year ago. Highway didn't. So, I think we're in a strong position leaving fire and police alone. They passed their override. It's enveloped into the budget, but, we're only on year number 2 with the override, amount, so,
Well, people spoke, we're doing the best we can.
yeah.
FAA, any questions on the highway? Jana?
No, I don't think so.
Wood? Thank you, MJ. Want to touch on recycling? Did we talk about that at all?
Let's see where we're at. I leveled recycling. The label will be covered. We're in good shape in terms of our expenses this year in recycling, so I think it's justified. We may not have to touch that in the fall. We may be all right with those amounts, unless the contract changes. I know that the company was sold, so for now, I think we're okay to level it.
So, long range, not this year. I've been using the transfer in Webster with their new company. I know there's always been resistance to the throw-as-you-go program. That might be something we might want to look at.
I'm trying not to,
Next year.
right. I don't want to trigger any,
No, not now.
any negotiations with the new company
No, I
at this
know.
point, but
But if we can get the civil
But you're right,
rights-
this is not, we'll be all right to level it, not knowing what we don't know is probably the way to go, right?
No, I agree. This year's
But
okay, but going forward might be something.
Going
we
forward,
might
I'm
think
sure that those costs are gonna go up. There's no getting around it substantially. So, okay.
You mean to put, that's like touching the third rail at the federal government.
That's what we need to do, is let's talk about the recycling center tonight, though. Veteran Services, Steve has done a great job recovering the money that's reimbursable. I think that 135 is a realistic number, and I think that he alluded to it at the last finance meeting, that the request was a little bit high, so I think we're okay with 135 based on what we've seen come through this year. The library. The full-time position for the library I've removed. I spoke a little bit to the library director. She's not crazy about removing the full-timer, but there should be some room to get some more part-time hours to assist in the children's librarian. Maintenance contracts we funded through capital. That's a lot of HVAC work, so forth. Program expenses, we funded at, that was the one line item that we had to make sure that we were within 6%. Was it materials or program? Do you remember?
Materials.
Materials, I'm sorry. We have to make sure that we have it 6%, within 6% of the bottom line budget, right? And so we made sure we funded that, because that's a match with the state if we funded at that level. So it would be crazy. We would lose double if we didn't fund that line item.
So at one time, that account hadn't been touched, and I know the last probably 7-8 years, that they using that funds.
She's aggressively
Yeah.
trying to spend down.
Yeah,
I remember one point they were way up, they hadn't used it.
all right.
Good.
So the library passed with the override. They have a slight increase, so we didn't take any money from that, obviously. We don't want to go through that again. I made no changes to the water sewer requests, with the exception of the indirect. So in order to provide a balanced budget, we took 121,365 and used our free cash, we applied it to FY '26. 407,985 from capital improvement stabilization, we applied it to FY '26. 309,928 from stabilization, applied to FY '26. And we voted tonight to release $125,000 from the surplus overlay, which has been infused into this recommendation. And then in October, with certified free cash, it's going to be necessary to appropriate the $21,000 from the assessor's budget. We're going to have to take another hard look at highway to make sure they're properly funded, adjust the snow and ice, and consider additional highway funding from free cash. I didn't fund the FAA reserve, thinking that we can fix it in October. We should be all right between July and October with what we have, but I think we should definitely consider funding FAA reserve to cover us from October till the end of next fiscal year. And then if there's anything left, put it back in stabilization.
That would be the prudent. Any questions on what we just went through, FAA?
So you're saying we're balanced, where we don't have to make any cuts, we pay all our bills?
We cut requests. You know, the two jobs, we got one.
This balance.
I mean, basically, what we agreed on is here, we don't have to
Yes.
find money somewhere. Okay.
Board members, questions? Jana?
No, I think I'm okay. I mean, this is obviously a lot of work. Goes without saying. But, yeah, it just seems like we're in a better position this year than we've been.
Sarah, anything you want to add?
I think, Mr. Chairman, we're only in a better position because we put money into stabilization. It's just ping-ponging back and forth. We're draining it in July as opposed to October, and hopefully we'll replenish some in October, but they kind of, you mentioned earlier the DLS recommendation of don't use one-time sources of funding to balance your budget. Well,
We just used
Yeah,
we used a lot of it,
700.
most of it.
but I don't know where to go with it at this point.
And again,
We've asked for approval to borrow money, and, you know, that wouldn't be the be-all, end-all, but it certainly didn't help. They have to pull 100 grand out of operating. I think we provided a pretty firm number for the overrides. Highway didn't pass. We can see what the ramifications are in the highway budget. Town hall didn't pass. We can see how we're using capital improvement stabilization to fund IT and stabilization to offset the cost of health insurance increases and so forth. So, I mean, there were real conservative numbers that didn't pass, so we've got to put, there's nowhere else to go with it.
right, and some of these increases are reactions to what was put upon the town at town meeting, when people were getting up and they wanted to revamp the personnel bylaw and strip powers from town administrator bylaw. The direct reaction to that was the town hall people unionized. They were worried. I'm not speaking for them, but they unionized, so now we have another block of employees we negotiate with. And again, the people last year that wanted to accuse us of scare tactics, you know, the administration side and other officials, excuse me, the auditor tried to explain this. The reason why we have this extra money, there was one-time sources of cash. There was 2 years' worth of Chapter 90 money. Excise tax came in, caught us completely off guard in the 23rd hour with a number we didn't have. That was numbers we told people last year. We're not gonna get, this year we didn't get what we got last year, and there was reasons behind why we got the extra money last year, and now Sarah can give it to the penny, but we've pretty much exhausted all that. That's why we look better, but DSL recommendation, as Mr. Ruda said, do not use one-time sources, and we just did. Otherwise, turn the lights out. Last one, I'll get the lights, because that's about where we would have been. Anybody else? Mike? Usually some things are pretty good.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for the way you put this together this year. This is fantastic. I mean, it's been over the several years that we've done this, that I've done this, it's been kind of difficult to put it all together, but you did a nice, thank you for doing this the way you've done it, so, a lot easier.
Been in your shoes before.
I mean, it's a balanced budget. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm a little uncomfortable with it, to be honest with you. We're using up 718,000 of our stable. Leaves us about 260 left going into next year. Who knows what free cash is gonna be like? I feel maybe we should be looking at maybe taking this down a little bit, at somewhere around 230 is where I was thinking. Taking the budget down or finding more revenue, or just, I feel we shouldn't take that much out of state, because if we're gonna run into next year, we've got a real problem. Run into next year, we're gonna be making significant cuts. I'd rather have 5 used and stable this year and 5 left over for next year's budget. I just feel it's a little bit much. Is there a possibility we can make some cuts going into October and funding with free cash in October? You see anything in there, John?
Advisory.
To send you back to the
Advisory
drawing board,
committee.
Advisory committee, what do you advise?
Well, I mean, there are places I can go with it, but we can partially fund a
Like I say,
couple
if
of
we could get some
part-time,
more
we could
rosier-
partially fund some part-time positions.
I mean, if we get a little more rosier on,
I can't do anything with any,
we don't know about the transportation reimbursement. I think there was an amendment put in, 100%, because right now the school's at 80%.
Never been 100 though, as Mr. Lamarche said.
It actually passed, I think, right?
it did pass, but how do we go back and get it? Once the assessment is voted, we've always run into that problem about how do we go back and get it, right? Because we can't.
Well, no, once it comes out of House and Ways, then school should come back with a revised. They need, if they get the extra $200,000, $250, which would be what it would be.
What's the number that we're trying to hit, 200?
I let, 232 would be my comfortable range. We can get this budget down, but I don't know how you guys feel.
It's my first rodeo, so.
Rodeo?
I was just gonna ask that, how Mr. Clark and Mr. Boussier, how's it?
I know it's kind of the point where, you're already making cuts elsewhere for things that, our departments want or need, whether it's the library, police department, for additional personnel. The only real way I see like cost cutting at this point is like policy change for responsibilities, or like you're shifting around, who's doing what work depending on like overtime hours, like cutting back in like that kind of way. But I don't have enough experience to be able to like say or make a recommendation on that front. I'm still learning, first year.
No, listen, I'm still learning, I've been doing it for a lot longer than 1 year, it's crazy.
The difficult part about that is, and we did that for years, that sort of, what else can we throw on somebody, right? But that's sometimes where you have to go. The problem is that the people that we would victimize or ask to step up are now unionized. So,
Yeah.
in order for,
It's a complicated situation.
I mean, we've done that.
to start throwing things during negotiations, to start throwing things into the job description that they didn't already previously do is really, that's the third rail.
And we also, on some of the things like you're talking about, they're not big ticket items, but for example, we put beaches on the fire chief at one time, to supervise the lifeguards.
I mean, I was the lifeguard.
That's, we put the tree warden under the highway superintendent, as the highway superintendent, we didn't give him anything for it. Scraping a couple thousand here, 5,000 there. Like John said, I'm sure Rich could back it up, the town hall people step up and stuff envelopes at tax time. I mean, things like that. It's responsibilities and jobs have been shifted, and most of the time they get a thank you, which is great. Then you go to town meeting and someone gets up and says, we want to gut what we got. Got GUT and got what we have.
What I could offer, Mr. Chairman, is if you give us some general guidance as to the way you'd like us to look, we can, I mean, we're meeting again on the 28th when we have to put an amen to it, but we can come back with something, but there's really not a lot of...
I don't like using that money either, but I've walked in and out of a couple budget meetings. I haven't sat in with these folks. The other day I walked into a budget meeting and sat in on Olivia one time on a phone call with the indirects. They've cannibalized every line of every budget. I mean, Mr. Lamarche was talking about the schools the other day, saying they reviewed every line. I think Sarah can speak for it. I think we pretty much have to. I mean, finding revenue we didn't know we had,
Right.
expenses that we didn't know we had. And we're
We're
still
keeping
running at.
conservative, so I mean, everybody was did their due diligence
And these numbers are pretty
tried to
good.
be
They
good
follow
stewards.
their instruction.
And we're probably running at, I'll just throw a generic number out there, 80% of what the staffing at public safety wants and needs. I mean, Chief Followitz gave us numbers last time based on population. Dean Kochanowski, Chief Kochanowski's done it before. Staffing, Mr. Gatsky, I'll look at his budget, it's right in front of me. Foreman, $1. He lost his foreman. That helps him with administration, with running crews, running work out there.
I know the beach wasn't a lot, but I haven't funded it in 3 years.
No, I know.
$1 a year for 3 years.
But I'm saying, that was something we put on you, and that funding came through private sources, people fundraised, but we put supervisory under the fire department. Some towns probably have a full-time person that supervises
But what if you do
beach.
this? What if you just, if the revenues come back better than expected, which I can tell, I think the ambulance receipts are gonna come back better. Put the money back in stabilization in October.
Well, that's the plan, I think, replenish. That's how,
That would be the plan that we would do anyway.
right, that's always the last motion.
Right. But if it doesn't, you got $200,000, $260,000 in stable. We funded the budget last year by, how much was stable we used last year? $800,000? We knew coming in that we were that behind going into this year, right?
Tried to explain
We're
that.
using $700,000 again. We won't have $700,000 to do this next year.
That's my whole point about the double chapter 90 money, the excise tax from 2 years ago.
I mean, and we have equipment we need to buy too, so. Police cars, we got other kind of things that we're gonna need to buy. How much free cash are we gonna have? That's the question.
I mean, we're already pushing off the assessors to the fall. Stuff we know what. I mean, I hear Mr. Ruda, as chairmen, let's give him some ideas. Well, like I said, I've sat in enough. I've talked to the accountant, I've talked to the assistant TA. We gotta roll the dice at this point. I mean, we're not gonna, I don't see where we're gonna get 50,000 out of this budget without rubbing two nickels together, you know what I mean? I don't see 232, that's for sure. I get what you're saying, Mike, you're just rounding the number down, but.
Right, I mean.
The budget that's gonna be the most impacted is highway, in terms of our free cash in October. That's the one we have to take a real look at.
Right.
Make sure that we've properly funded through the snow season and so forth. Beyond that, there's gonna be the assessor's request for the cyclical inspections and so forth. It's 21 grand. I
don't particularly see with, I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't particularly see us having that much free cash left over put in stable come October. I just don't see it. And then we go into the next budget year, we're gonna already be behind $700,000. Very little to, where do you go from there? Unless you go for an override again. And if that doesn't work, then you're back to cutting fire, police, highway, library, you're back into those kind of cuts again. So I would rather try to figure it out within the next few weeks where we can possibly cut, and then stuff that we can pay after October, where we can see where we go for cash in October to pay.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if we're making those decisions, what we're doing is, and it's fine because we've done this before, we can partially fund stuff, but then we still have to make the hard decision in October.
We're just gonna use that money then, I don't know.
I mean, we can cut a lot, we can cut stuff in half all over the place. It's just a matter of having it back in front of us in October.
We have to move stable at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna beat
stable at that point, but I would rather you go into a budget a little less.
I'm gonna beat the drum with 3 overrides and every annual property increase is still far below other towns in our tax rate. I mean, Oxford's looking for an operational override for their schools and their town. They told the schools to split. They're in a different situation, though. They're not a district like we are. They told them to split the deficit plus 200,000 or 250.
I mean, it would be great if we could get news on 100% reimbursement on regional schools for the transportation. That right there is, $250,000 less that we'd have to. But we don't know.
You don't know when you get the check. I get here, Mike. I'm comfortable though with what's presented. I mean, like the administrator said, I'm sure they could find stuff, but it's gonna be replaced in the fall, or it's gonna be hysteria all over again.
It's up to the room. We'll do what you want.
So at this point, what do you want, a motion to accept as presented?
I want you to,
And then if there's any changes, you can come back, but I'm not comfortable making a motion or asking for a motion to cut X. That's the board's pleasure.
we want to let it marinate for a minute, and we'll take a look at, the draft warrant.
Sure.
So you want to hold it off to the next meeting?
No, just let's look at the draft warrant
Oh,
next
well, just
before we take,
tonight.
yeah.
I'm good with that, everybody else is. Jan, you good with that? We're gonna review the warrant right now, real quick, too.
Yep, I have it in front of me. I'm ready.
Mr. Ruda.
Okay. First one is standard. Second one is standard. Third one is the budget we're talking about right now, which needs to be populated with all the bottom lines for the different departments and the sources of funding. I asked today for any unpaid bills that may still be hanging around out there. I don't know if we've gotten any response from that yet. I'm hoping we don't. Article 5 is the standard authorization of revolving funds, and that's part of the DLS report. We're gonna take a look at revolving funds to just ensure that we need them still, we're using them correctly and so forth. But that's got a timeline assigned to it, so that can change at any point.
So that would be.
Just so revolving funds, so maybe Josh, you know how that's set up, just so you know, because I know you were looking, I can tell by you rubbing your chin. The amounts that are next to the revolving funds, those are the amounts that we can put into the revolving funds.
Okay, that makes
That's
sense.
nothing we're budgeting for, because that can be alarming to see.
For example,
For example, Veterans Bricks Memorial, that's the veterans bricks that are outside the town hall near the entrance. We take somebody wants to buy a veterans brick, they buy it, it's put into a revolving fund, and we pay for the brick from that fund. So it's in and it's out. There's no cost center assigned to it.
Okay.
And they're limited too on how much can be in that account, how much is spent, right? How much is spent.
And yeah, those are the limits that you can stockpile money into that account.
Right, we can't
But
have-
it's not money that comes out of taxation.
Correct.
It comes in as a receipt and it's spent
And just for
for that
example,
purpose.
too, for the people, the new folks, firearm permit services. The police officer that does the firearms comes in and works on his day off, but that's funded through the license that the amount that people pay for the license. It's not a budgetary, that 20,000 is not, it's all revenue driven by how many people want a license.
Like a break-even fund?
Yeah, well, they can carry a small balance over, but yeah, that's where it comes from. It does not exceed the incoming, like say he gets 100 license. Feeling can afford, he has to afford 100 because people are paying for it. He doesn't come back to the town and say, chief, don't come back and say, we're short $2,000, $5,000. Things like that. I looked at that, that's one of the bigger numbers.
Okay, so Article 6 is what the capital improvement voted, that we approved, that the Board of Selectmen approved tonight. That's to borrow for 6 new vehicles over the course of 5 years,
Right, yeah, it's not one time.
right?
Again,
Article 7,
well, just on that one too, real quick, we just touch on the surplus vehicle we just sold. It's not,
well, I didn't get the money for it yet, so
all right.
I'm chasing the guy, but yeah, we just sold a surplus vehicle for $10,100, and that money goes, the town meeting authorized that money to be put right into our capital stabilization account. So if we sell surplus vehicles, we can put that right into stabilization, hopefully apply it towards capital needs in the future.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just for the FAA on this one, capital improvement approved, is it 5 new police cars, 1 each year for the next 5 years? They're hybrids, and 1 fire vehicle, which is included in the 482, the total amount, so.
Article 7 is a request for the town meeting to approve employment contracts as opposed to employment letters for the police lieutenant, deputy fire chief, which is consistent with what's done in other towns. We never properly approved that way back when. So that's the request. That one is for the water line. No, that is, that Article 8 is borrowing for the remediation on Eagle Drive, which is right now being covered by Gentex. I don't have a number in there yet. I will by the 28th, because I'm just trying to fine tune as to what we owe Gentex, because they're covering 100% of the costs, so we have to see what we owe them on a cost-sharing agreement. Bills that are outstanding from Weston and Sampson that didn't get paid after it failed twice at town meeting, and ongoing costs. That's for the water main extension, $14.2 million. We got that $600,000 grant. They're doing the costing and the engineering associated with that project. And like we discussed before, the installation of a water line on Eagle Drive will solve the problem of not having an ongoing $500,000 expense every year for the POET systems and the ongoing remediation. If we put a water line there, it will solve the problem. However, we have to negotiate with Gentex to pay a portion of it. We've got to talk with our water sewer commissioners to see how they're going to contribute to it. And the idea to borrow the money doesn't mean that that's going to be the final bill that we need to pay off, because there's going to be other sources of funding that we can put towards it. We're just not there yet. There's too many legal issues to deal with right now.
That would be
And it's on a timeline as well, too. So we're pushing this thing forward because our ability to get the 0% partial principal forgiveness loan, if we don't accept this, will expire after July 1st. So that's why it's being fast-tracked onto this. We have 3 hearings coming up for the public to come in and talk about it, but, you know, I hate the timeline, but it's what we have right now. That was me toying with an idea, which I think is gonna, that Article 10 will be deleted if we fund the line item for the budget. I was gonna give the option for the town meeting to vote to borrow for the $100,000 for the line item that's now included in the budget, but which would free up $100,000 if it passed. It would get us closer to the 232 number that Mr. Mayo was talking about, but I look for guidance from the Board of Selectmen and the FAA on that.
What was it again? What was 10? Cable access channel?
No,
What?
cap landfill.
No, cap landfill.
Oh, cap landfill.
It said something about cap.
So if you look at,
cable access.
oh, it did?
Oh, none of my thing.
Again, a rough draft. If you look at the line item under municipal expenses, For the cap landfill, it's 97,000.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, once, twice, 3, 5 times, right? It's gotta go in the budget.
Right, it's gotta go in the budget, I agree with that, but how it goes in the budget is,
Crucial.
Sure. But in the end, it has to happen.
right.
It has to be in the budget.
Oh, no, I wouldn't propose we take it out as a line item. If it passed, if for some reason the town meeting said, yes, we can borrow it, it would sit there and we'd fix it in October. We'd have $100,000 that we could put back into stabilization.
And again, on Article 9, I'm gonna paraphrase, so if I get instant fact checked by somebody at home, that's fine. As Mr. Ruda said and DEP said, Mary Jude, who's been working with George, who's not here tonight, with the town, water line solves the problem, POET systems mitigate it. And it's a big number, and as Mr. Ruda said, it could come down with source of funding, but it's something that has to get done. We can't be any more. I'm sure everybody knows somebody that lives in that neighborhood or that area. Can't be keep $100,000 a year with POETs, are only gonna go up. That's hazardous waste when it's time to get rid of them, and it's gonna, in 5 years, I hate to see what that number, that 97,000 is gonna be.
Well, actually,
Well,
hopefully the cap landfill 97 will go down, but the Eagle Drive will definitely not go down.
That's what I'm saying, Eagle Drive one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that number, that's the big number. It's just
Right.
gonna, that's never gonna go down. Any questions on the proposed warrant?
Should I leave that request to borrow for the cap landfill on the warrant, or should we yank it? Enough is enough? Just put it in the budget?
What was the amount we asked last time? Was it the same amount, or?
It was part of the two questions that failed. It was part of like 297, but it included Eagle Drive and cap landfill, but now I've separated cap landfill and Eagle Drive as a separate question.
So the amounts are the same, they're just.
Relatively the same.
Right now, that's the cost that Gentex is picking up.
Which we're gonna have to pay back one way or another.
Eventually, we're gonna have to pay back either source of funding or some judge is gonna tell us. They're not gonna do it forever, out of the goodness of their heart.
No.
It's great they're doing it now, I certainly thank them, but
So I'll leave it in the budget as is, and we'll yank the article, and just hope for a better response from the Eagle Drive borrowing than we got last time.
it was close last time, but
I think that if it doesn't pass, and Gentex finds it, Gentex is very interested as to whether or not it's gonna pass, because that's gonna be back on them if it doesn't. So we may see some legal ramifications after, if it doesn't pass. I can't imagine they're just gonna float $250,000 until we figure ourselves out here. But
any questions for the FAA, from the FAA? From the board? Jan, are you good?
I'm good.
Sarah, anything you want to add?
No, are we waiting for the 28th, or are we gonna?
What do you want for a motion, Mr. Chairman? You want to hold off 2 weeks? I'm comfortable. I don't think we're going to find anything that's, if we don't fund it now, would be jeopardizing the fall.
I'll do whatever the room wants to do.
Like, you guys want to make a first motion?
No.
Well,
You guys know my personal feeling.
while you were talking, I was looking through here to see what could you cut, and I don't find anything. In my opinion, I think the schools could cut more. But we've already discussed that with them last time, so.
I agree. I already had the discussion. And Board members, what do you want?
You're looking for a recommendation from FAA on this budget?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. I'm just gonna kind of quickly go over some quick numbers here. And this is to the gentleman that came up during citizens' comments, asked a question, so maybe this helps answer a little bit. He was asking about the levy and whatnot. So the levy is for 2025 was $16,583,783. We have the 2.5% increase, which amounts to $412,520. We have our estimating new growth at 175, and we have capital exclusion, debt exclusions that add up to $1,351,161, for a total of $18,439,464. You can add to that what comes off the state aid cherry sheet, $2,487,865. We're anticipating local receipts at $3,607,362, and enterprise funds from the water and sewer, $4,211,901. To supplement the budget, we're going to add $121,365 from our free cash account, which leaves us with little to none, actually zero in that. We're going to use $407,985 from our stabilization account, $309,928 from our capital in reverse order. I think it's capital stabilization is $407,985. Regular stabilization is $309,228. And we're going to use the overlay surplus amount of $125. Indirects from the water and sewer, $210,217. For those add up to $11,481,622. Total revenue $29,921,086.
Right. Jive with what you have, Sarah?
Too fast.
So excess capacity is only 1,752.
Yes.
Forgot to say, right, Sarah?
Great, sir. All right, so we have, John, you're asking for a total budget of $29,919,334.
Correct.
Anybody want to make a motion?
So just to review, if we did find a couple $100,000 that we could cut, it wouldn't really be cutting, we'd have to reconsider it in October anyway. You're basically just moving money and potentially still paying it.
Even then.
Yeah.
Well, that's correct, Mr. Chairman, or you cut things and then you reprioritize in October, meaning that what you think is important now may not be as important in October.
I mean, we've already turned back requests, but needed personnel.
Motion to accept the proposed budget?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on it? No discussion? All right, again, I'll reiterate my concern with this. I still think it's $237,000 over budget. I'd like to see some additional cuts or additional revenue. Hopefully, maybe we can see something in the next 2 to 3 weeks, wherever. But that's the only objection I would have. I'm just worried about going into next year with no
Umbrella.
Yeah. So,
Mr. Chairman, we'll wait until the last minute to post it. If we have to have an emergency meeting and make it an amendment or a change, we'll do it. If something breaks.
Any other discussion on it? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Board of Selectmen, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented in the amount of $29,919,334.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Landry,
Second.
second by Mr. Shanes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mark Landry, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
And I think Jan got talked over.
Lose you, Jana?
Yeah, Jana DeShane, aye.
Anybody with a change of vote? Recorded as unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work on that budget. And I lost my agenda.
So, Mr. Chairman, maybe we need to leave the April 28th meeting on the books.
If necessary, yes.
Let's leave it on the books and vote the warrant at that time, if that's possible, if that's all right. He'll give us another bite of the apple, eh?
No.
I'll make it the, it's nobody's not to have it.
I think that's good.
Town Administrator's report.
I spent the last 2 weeks working on the budget, Mr. Chairman.
Departmental Communications, Assistant Town Administrator,
Nothing tonight.
Town Accountant.
Really, one quick note, as John mentioned earlier, I did hear from DLS. They are having a training for policies and procedures, and they suggest up to 4 members, including selectmen, may go. The training is, I'll find it here. I don't know if I brought it up with me. Oh, it's on May 14th and May 21st. They're half days. They didn't say as of yet if they're morning or afternoon half days, but it's a 2-part training.
Is that by Zoom or is that in person?
It's in person. It's at the Westford. Hold on. Shows document session. Westford Town Hall.
We nominate Kerry because he's not here.
I think the town accountant will be attending.
Yeah.
I don't know if Rich is going or anybody from his office, but he's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be tied up.
But when we got the report back from DLS, I called because Melinda had made suggestion that they have templates and stuff. And they said they were having the training, so I put my name on the list.
I think that'd be great. Chief Collowitz.
Just real quick, drug take-back is Saturday, April 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if you're doing your spring cleaning, if you happen to have any prescription drugs, any over-the-counter drugs, you want to get rid of them, stop by the station. And that day, we're also going to be taking any sharps or needles, so stop by. There is a box down in the lobby. You can always drop them off during the week or any day, but this is when you go through your cleaning. Don't throw them out. Don't flush them down the toilet, because what happens is it contaminates the sewer plant and also goes into your septic. So just bring them in that day, Saturday, April 26th, 10 to 1. Thank you.
Fire and EMS. Highway, beach, building and grounds.
I believe this Saturday is Earth Day cleanup, I believe. If I have that correct, I'm not sure.
That was the 26th. No.
Is it the 26th or is it, I thought it was just
Is
Saturday.
that right?
Yeah, it's after Easter, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 2
2 weeks.
2 weeks from Saturday.
Okay, I got that wrong then.
Well, no, 1 week from Saturday.
1 week from Saturday.
Okay, Webster's is this week then, I believe. They are doing road construction down on Mill Road and Village Street area, so there might be some detours up, and they're doing road construction on Airport Road intersection. So there is detours on changing every day, so just be aware of that.
What would they base coat? Was that odd lock they already base coated?
They put the binder down on Ardlock and Mill, and they're working on Main Street right now, and probably be Village Street next week or at the end of this week. So it's probably gonna be a little messed up there for a few days.
I was just thinking of the people that came in the wintertime and they,
Yeah, they're gonna be doing some curb work and stuff like that, so I'm sure there'll be detours different every day. So, same with over on Airport Road intersection. So, they're changing the detours every day. It's not never the same, so people are getting upset about it, but
avoid it if possible.
soon enough it'll be over.
Yep. Mr. Clark, you here just, I'm sorry.
The
Mr. Johnson.
town of Dudley Post says Earth Day is the 19th.
Oh, what is this sad day? Oh, okay,
Holy Saturday.
Day before Easter.
So I was right.
we were right. So, come to the, come to Indian Road for gloves and bags and,
Yeah, I Board of Health is doing it. but
yeah.
We
I thought it
will,
was 26.
it'll be open, and if somebody's cleaning up, they can bring it to the highway department.
All right, thank you. Mr. Clark, you're here just to observe, you're not for planning board or library, right?
I'm sorry?
You're just here to observe, you're not here for the library or the planning board, right?
No, I'm just here as a resident, that's all. Just one question, if I may, though. You folks went through some, well, mounds of detail, it would appear. Is that going to be available on the town website or someplace where that might be accessible for the residents? Or do we have to wait to the town meeting?
It will be on the warrant.
But the warrant will be posted, right?
Yeah, when the warrant gets posted. I don't, I'm new here, too. I'm gonna play the new card. I don't know what.
I realize it might take a forest in terms of, coming up with enough paper to do all this, but Mr. Mayot's kind enough to share his, it looks like.
I'll be all marked up, though, you might want to.
Oh, well, I'm sure that the comments are certainly relevant.
I think we can certainly put this on the website or make it available. I think we should wait till we should wait till we voted on the 28th, the final,
Right.
and all the documents to make sure that they're solid. Because the minute we put it up there, it's gonna go.
Well, exactly, but again, the sense, looking at full disclosure, obviously, we have a number of residents in attendance this evening, and there are some people who might be watching this on TV and say, well, I've got a lot of paper that's been moving around here, but where is it that I can see it? And I don't know how much we're going to be able to pick up off the screen on your other screen at home, if you will. It's a little
I think
complicated.
maybe, Mr. Chairman, we could take these documents and condense them a little bit. We'll put the revenue projections up.
Yeah, get that up at least.
We'll put up the budget, the department head request versus what was voted here tonight, so people have an idea as to what was requested and what these two groups passed.
Yes, we'll get the framework up, and then we'll
Right.
get the final one, we'll get that up too.
I think that would be appreciated in whatever format you're able to put together, as a summary or something of that sort. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, treasurer collector.
Did we call the? I'm sorry.
Good evening. Open enrollment for the health insurance for the employees and for the retirees. Thursday, we'll have the IAC meeting with the trust. Open enrollment runs till the first week of May. That gets your enrollment for a 7/1 start. So some of the presumptions that you had for your budget, who's going to take the health insurance or any changes for the year, we'll have a cleaner picture when it's done. Cutting it a little tight, at least for the town meeting, but going to the fall, you've made some assumptions, you'll have an actual number to do things from that point. As far as collections go, everybody who had a pink bill, it was due today. That's the first commitment. Same thing with the water and the sewer. Anybody who hadn't paid a water and sewer left a sizable balance, it was due today. The next water sewer billing is probably going to be out the first week in May, totally unofficial. But remember, you have one more real estate bill that's due on the 1st. So sort of after that, you'll know what you had for a reasonable idea of receipts for the year. Maybe there's a third commitment. The second commitment isn't due until April 30th, and it's a twice-a-week meeting in the town administrator's office to make sure that the revenue numbers are as tight as they can be. Beyond that, appreciate everybody's time in this. There was no hyperbole when it was a great deal of time and effort to sort of comb through not the first pass, but the second and the third pass of the budget to make sure that what was presented tonight was defensible.
I just had one question, Rich. Was that 28% increase, did that catch you off guard or the trust off guard? Because what were we talking about?
28, it would be 18 and 20, Mr. Chairman. So at the end of the day, you have the health insurance trust, which is sort of buying health insurance from Blue Cross. There's an admin cost. They separate out your health insurance from the prescription drugs, and then the secret is in how it's being managed. They're going through, and you get better numbers because you get the direct numbers. You see what there is available for contract negotiations. There's a few people who are working hard to make sure that you're saving 200 here, 300 here. The one thing that sort of, I shouldn't say caught anybody off guard, but your GLP-1s and sort of their meteoric rise were over $6-7 million in unanticipated costs. GLP-1s are Skyrizi, Ozempic. Any sporting event is going to have that commercial, and somebody's going to show an arm that's had better results. The problem with the GLP-1s, and I'm parroting back the Boston Globe and some other news outlets, there's a difference between taking a GLP-1 for being a diabetic and using it for an off-label purpose where other results are being achieved. So if you have diabetes or another chronic condition, there's a course of treatment. If you speak to your general practitioner saying, I'd like to feel better, this could be prescribed without any course of treatment. And the way the market is working, and again, I'm parroting this back, there's not much needed to qualify for a prescription. The way the market is expanding, there's a whole bunch of people who have no real reason to go through and be competitive with their pricing. So that 6 or 8 million has come right off of the top. And if you want to go back to the previous year where they've cannibalized $3 or $4 million in principal of the trust, that's why your increases are going up. Back to Mr. Ruta's comment on indirects, you have things year by year by year increasing. The medical trend cost last year was about 10%. On top of that is going to be all of the under-anticipated GLP costs moving forward on top of everything else. So at the end of the day, I think the trust did better than average, and they're going to need to react to that because it's an untenable position to go through and have your resources, that trust portion be underfunded. And again, back to, if you had a large trust position and you're earning interest on it, you're offsetting future costs, but this would be the second or third year of a declining balance of that trust portion that's offsetting gains. So at the end of the day, I would expect that to go through some changes for 27 or a mid-year change in 26, but I can't speak to it because it's a trust. There's 71 members.
Mr. Chairman, while Rich is up here, I would, and Sarah's right across, there was a question as to our starting point in projecting revenues by the gentleman earlier this evening. we went over this with, including with Lisa Berg, the assessor, who I believe sent a summary to that gentleman as to how we came up with that number. But we were all in lockstep, rock solid with our FY25 actual per recap starting point to project those revenues. So I just want to, well, Rich is up here and Sarah's here, and I'm sitting here saying that this wasn't done in a vacuum. We discussed it at a finance team level meeting, and
So,
That was my first question too, before we even started. I said, is everybody agreeing on the revenue numbers? And
well, you're, Mr. Chairman, your 25 levy is set in granite. You've set the tax rate, you have a budget put together, your tax bills went out before 1/1, and this is written in stone. For the next year, you have a starting point, and you're adding in 2.5, you're adding in estimated new growth. Who knows what it's going to be? It could be a great year for building, it could be a modest year for building. And this is V1, and in the fall, you will have V2, having closed out fiscal 25. You know where you are for free cash or water sewer retained earnings, what was approved, so on and so forth, so that there'll be a refinement of those numbers at the top, but your starting point remains the same.
thank you. I think I'm good. You good? FAA good? Jan, you good with the chiefs and with Rich?
Yeah, sure am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Board members? Yeah, she just said she was good. Okay.
I don't want to detract from any conversation and all the hard work for budget season. Just want to make sure I continue asking for, find the transaction data on the repayment of the athletic football field costs from the pledge system, business donations. That's not a priority over budget season,
No, but I get it.
but I'd like this. I'm just going to send a little note to remind Mr. LaMarche and others involved.
So your board member comment?
Yeah, that's the most polite one I have.
Mr. Landry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to tell everybody, great job putting this together, talking it through, explaining it, and making the best with what we have.
Jana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of things, actually. First and foremost, thank you so much to the finance team for putting this together. I know that it is so much work, and it's so many drafts, and I just really appreciate all the hard work that the team does. Second, I had a very quick call last week with our Harvard representative, Boris Kepler. This was on Tuesday, April 8th. I got him on the phone when I was looking for the project plan in writing, showing what tasks have been completed, what's outstanding. He said he would send one over within a couple of days. I still haven't received it, but I did ping him again this morning. I'm assuming I'll probably hear from him again tomorrow, similar to last week. At the time, I had asked if he needed anything else from us by way of continuing with next steps, that kind of thing. And he suggested re-engaging with a smaller department to try to work out how testing and training will go for the rest of the town employees. I'm starting to think that maybe we could get started with the town administrator's office, since we have a couple of different styles of timekeeping there. But I think it's something that's probably ultimately going to have to wait until we get that full project plan back, and we can go back to we can kind of sit down as a team to figure out what that strategy is to go forward. But I'm hoping to be moving pretty quickly once we get that project plan. All right. So after we get those outstanding items, I'd also like to just in the next couple of weeks touch base with the department heads, or ask the town administrator's office to touch base with the department heads, just to see what what concerns they might have going forward. Just to try to like be proactive about that and kind of get ahead of it. Again, I know that everyone is time strapped and being super busy, but just to kind of let you know like where I'm at with it so far. And I think the only other thing is if you are celebrating Easter this weekend, happy Easter. And if you're driving on Sunday, there are an awful lot of people that give them alcohol for Lent. So just be careful. Sometimes that glass of wine gets way harder than you think it's going to.
Thank you, Jana. Yeah, I just want to echo everybody also tonight. Thanks for the work on the budget. Like I said, I walked in a couple meetings and I walked out, sat in for a few, and it's not easy. Thank the accountant for putting the sheet together, very easy to read, easy to explain. Appreciate all the time and effort that went into it. And also echo Jana, if you celebrate this weekend, celebrate Easter. Hope you and your family have a nice weekend. There was an incident in Pennsylvania where somebody firebombed the governor's mansion, the governor's residence, and he had another family there, plus his own family celebrating their religious holiday, and it boggles my mind. Hate has no place, especially for something like that. So we're going to move into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Police chief, fire chief, town accountant, and somebody like to lead us into executive.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Landry, second by Mr. Johnson. It is a roll call vote.
Mark Landry, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Dana Duchesne, aye.
We are not to reconvene in open session unless necessary. Have a good night, everybody.